Hey guys, we're looking at our collision, and last time we ended up with something like this. You could jump on your platform, you could jump and walk off and get all your normal stuff. If you were below, you could hit your head when you jump, and that is the beginnings of Mario or Sonic or anything. Later we'll add more. However, just because it worked doesn't mean the code was good. Here's what it was like. And this code ended up with exactly the same output as this code, but I'll show you what the difference is behind the scenes. Walking left and right, not bad. Jump, get a velocity. Fall, get an acceleration. Move, just those things do their job. And then this, oh my gosh, look at this. Right away you can tell it's not the same. You know, this is nice and clean. It applies no matter what. For example, the fall function applies if you start in the air, if you walk off, if you jump, it doesn't matter. This is all there, okay? But this is like really dependent on the specifics, and we don't like that. We want this to be universal. We don't want to have to say specifically, here's this platform and its name and where it is and what it's you know, that's no good. Especially because this stuff is inside the class of the guy, the ball. You don't want to have the platform stuff happening inside of this class, because if you were changing the platform, you might forget to change this. Or if you were working with a team and one person's working on the platform, and then you contact the people working on the character and say, hey, you have to change all your stuff because I changed my stuff, that's no good, right? So we want to make this cleaner. How do we do that? Number one, we want to put some of this inside the platform class. How do we do that? Here was an example. This, I can't hit run on all these tabs because it would give me errors, but this is all the same output. The game looks exactly the same no matter what. But these are different because this one has a function in the platform called collide. And what it does is you send them a point with X and Y, and it says, hey, is this point inside the rectangle or is it not? I think Pygame has a built-in version of this, but whatever, it's easy to write one line. If the X is, you know, greater than the one end and less than the other, and if the Y is greater than one end and less than the other, etc., you return a true. And then all the functions we had earlier in the guy, the ball, they can just ask, oh, do we collide with platform 1? Great. Do we collide with platform 2? Great. Okay, this is the one called bump, which tests if you jump from below and hit your head, and you get a velocity of 0, meaning you stop, which then the acceleration takes over in another function and brings you down with gravity. This one is called grounded, which tests if you're on solid ground, which means you're going to not fall and, yes, be able to jump. And then this one is called snap, which says if you ever get like inside a rectangle, it'll just pop you back out. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need that, but we're not in a perfect world. So that's better, right? First of all, the code is shorter. Look at the bump here versus here. It's lost some weight. You know, that's not always a perfect sign, but in this case, it's a good indication. And it means that the platform stuff is happening inside the platform. So instead of like the ball figuring out where everything is, the ball just says, hey, Mr. Platform, are we touching you? Great, thanks. Other platform, are we touching you? Great, thanks. And it's getting an answer back and using it, but it doesn't have to do the job itself. However, we can do better than that because this still relies on the ball knowing where all the platforms are and knowing their names. So like it has to ask platform 1, it has to ask platform 2. And if we made another one, which we definitely will, there's going to be multiple platforms in this game, we would have to add that here, and add that here, and add that here. And we'd probably forget or mess that up or something. So how do we do that? We want to make it so that the ball the guy, the character, the Mario, can just ask, hey, platforms, am I touching any one of you? And it'll get back an answer. And it doesn't have to know what their names are or where they are or how many of them there are. It should just be able to ask, hey, you guys, tell me yes or no. That's all I need. And we can do that. How do we do that? With this. We make a list for the platforms. How do you make a list in Python? Most of you guys have already done this somewhere along the way in one of your projects, but if you don't, to make a list, you use these little brackets to initialize. And a list can do anything. It can have different, it can have like an integer and then a string and then an object. Like it can do whatever. And to add, you use this function called append. There are others like remove and shuffle and that kind of thing. And you can actually do more than one in the same function call. You can say like append this, comma this, but I wanted to make them separate for the visual identification. And so now we have a list of the platforms, which means our guy can just say, hey, do I hit any of these? Do I hit any of the platforms? I don't have to know how many, what they're doing, anything. Same thing on the bump. Am I hitting any of them? If so, I'm going to stop. Okay, that's an improvement because that means when we add a platform later, this doesn't change at all. This doesn't change at all. It doesn't have to know how many are out there or anything. One extra improvement I wanted to make was this. They're still treating the bottom separately. Right here, they're treating the floor as a different thing. And I said, why don't we just add that to the platform list? Because it is the same, right? It might be grass. Once we make it look pretty and have a visual, it might look like grass instead of the, Mario blocks up here, but it's the same thing. So in this version, and again, I'm doing these changes with no change in the output. The output is exactly the same here as it was in all of these versions I've shown. But it's more efficient, it's better, it's more modular and changeable and readable and all this good stuff. So I took the floor, which was over here, and I called it floor and added it to the list. And now those functions in the guy are even better. It doesn't have to check anything except the list. Hey, am I landed on anything I can land on? Yes or no? Thanks. Done. Over here, am I bumping my head on anything I can bump my head on? Yes or no? Thanks. Done. It doesn't have to know what they're called or where they are. You've heard me say this a million times. So that's nice, right? You will do the same thing, most likely. If you're making a Space Invaders game with you on the bottom and the enemy spaceship over here, and you shoot little, lasers or whatever you call them. I don't know, what do they call the projectiles in Space Invaders? Bullets? I don't know. You would really have a hard time if your guy had to check, is this bullet hitting me? Is this bullet hitting me? Is that bullet hitting me? Is that, if you had to like go through, because if you're shooting a bunch and they're shooting a bunch, who knows, right? But if you can say, hey, bullets, am I touching any of you? Yes or no? Thanks. Then that makes it a lot easier. You can just make a list of bullets. If any of them are touching your guy, you take damage. Done. Okay. If you were doing Breakout, we made an example of Breakout because that was a very easy one, starting with our Pong game. So you have your paddle and the ball bounces, and then it's going to have a bunch of bricks that it can hit, right? And you would really be in bad shape if you had to check, like, am I hitting this one or this one or this one or this one or this one? But if you can make a list of bricks, and say, hey, list, am I touching any of these guys? If it says yes, you bounce, they crack, done, right? And when one goes away entirely, you can remove it from the list, and then your ball will move through that space where it used to bounce, you know? So this is a very powerful paradigm. I don't know what you want. I don't know what word I'm trying to think of here. This is a very simple way, and a lot of you guys have done this before in other projects. But this is going to be important in our next step when we start to make things spawn and despawn, and when you have items coming in from the side and enemies coming in and new stuff. In order to keep track of all of them, you really don't want to keep track of every single one's name and where it is and what it's doing. You want to just be able to ask, am I touching any of them? Am I affected by any of these? Thanks. Done. Okay. Tomorrow, I will look at yours, put some grades, put some comments, but really this is going to take a while, so that's okay. Awesome.